Joining us now is Matt Johnson, press coordinator for Direct Action Everywhere. Matt, welcome to the Damage Report.
Thanks so much for having me on, John. Thrilled to be here.
Glad to have you here. So recently there was a protest in California at a duck farm and slaughterhouse. I've seen video of the protest, but can you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Direct Action Everywhere, the animal rights network that I'm affiliated with, for literally years, we've been submitting evidence of criminal animal cruelty to the relevant authorities in Sonoma County, California, regarding what's happening inside of some of these factory farms. And more recently, it was specifically this duck farm that you refer to. And unfortunately, the authorities have repeatedly just simply refused to take action when we reported it to authorities at all levels. And so finally, ordinary people have said that when our elected officials are not going to take action in the face of criminal animal cruelty, we're going to take action ourselves. So we went in there and we rescued some of these sick and injured animals. And we also locked ourselves, many activists locked themselves to these facilities in an act of civil disobedience to demand that our elected officials are held accountable to the will of the people.
And you're seeing there some of the footage of people being locked to one of the bits of machinery that moves the ducks through. And it looked like from the video that the machine was started up either intentionally or accidentally. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we're not sure exactly how that came to happening. But yeah, we had these activists who locked themselves to this machinery. And then a few minutes later, somehow this machinery was turned on. And we had an activist who was really viciously yanked up against the machinery and kind of had his neck wedged up against a steel beam, and his face was turning blue. It was a really scary situation. And fortunately, he made it out, in reasonably okay shape. He was hospitalized with severe pain and nerve damage, but could have been much worse.
So I'm curious, in these sorts of direct action protests, I mean, obviously there was some risk there. He was being injured, and you're on machinery that can be dangerous. Where do you draw the line, and how much risk your members are willing to take when engaging in these sorts of protests?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we really, we take the precautions that we can make, and we're certainly going to kind of reevaluate things in light of what happened there. But ultimately, yeah, people are really inspired by this growing movement, and people are really motivated by what's happening in these farms and are willing to take risks to not only their safety, but to their freedom. As we've seen, 79 activists were arrested on felony charges that day, in addition to many others who were facing felony charges previously. So, these are calculations we have to make, but certainly sacrifice is an inevitable part of social change.
What are the charges that your members are facing now?
It's varied amongst many instances by now, but burglary charges are very common, theft charges, that sort of a thing, and as well as misdemeanor trespasses is also a common charge.
So I'm also curious, one of the first things I remember doing when I started working here at TYT was I had to edit down some videos that had been taken by an employee at a pig processing plant. And that was really difficult to watch and difficult to show people. And in several states since then, there have been so-called ag-gag laws that have made it a crime to film what happens inside of these places. How does that change, I guess, the behavior or the prioritization of direct action by groups like yours when less of that footage is sort of just coming out as a result of insiders?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I appreciate the way the Damage Report has covered that issue with the ag-gag laws. I'm actually from the state of Iowa, where the federal courts thankfully struck down the law in January, the ag-gag law, and then just 2 months later, it was rushed through and passed by the Iowa legislature, where agriculture obviously looms large there. And as far as how that affects our work, it's really interesting because it has had, unfortunately, the intended impact of depressing this sort of whistleblowing activity. But I think there's actually a reverse effect happening, whereby ordinary people are feeling empowered to elevate our voices where they are least welcome and to directly challenge this legal system, which is in complete misalignment with animal welfare, with environmental concerns around the animal agriculture's influencing climate change, and just frankly, the will of ordinary people. So I think that it might actually be really backlashing and causing more activism in some of those areas, but we'll see that with time.
So there was another event, we only have a little bit of time, but back, I believe on June 6th, one of your members was arrested for approaching Jeff Bezos on stage. Can you tell us what happened in that case?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is activist Priya Suhani. She was facing 7 felony charges related to this investigatory work for investigating chicken farms that supply to Amazon. And she took her concerns directly to Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, after he and Amazon completely refused to engage on this issue. And so she approached him, and her thank you for approaching him about this corporate misconduct was that she's now been slapped with 2 additional felonies. And one note I want to quick add too is that California law actually protects the actions that we're doing. So not only is what's happening inside of these farms criminal, but California Penal Code 597 actually says that ordinary citizens are empowered to go into these places and to protect animals in the same way that that rescuing a dog from a hot car by breaking a window isn't vandalism or isn't burglary. Going in and rescuing animals and helping them inside of factory farms is similarly protected by law. But unfortunately, the powers that be are not interested in enforcing that law and are in fact prosecuting the very people looking to do the right thing.
Well, best of luck to the many dozens of members who are facing charges right now. And Matt Johnson, thank you for joining us today on the show.
Thank you so much, John.
Here on the Damage Report, we talk a lot about the big banks and their ways of getting rich off the poor. They saturate the market, but there are other options. And I've got info on a socially and environmentally responsible financial institution that has no ATM fees, gives you cash back on every purchase. They even commit 10% of their earnings to charity. It's called Aspiration, and if you go to aspiration.com/TYT to sign up, you'll get these perks, and that's more money to spend or to save or to spend. Just treat yourself.